Namaste, namaste, sir. We are so happy to have you here, ma'am.
Namaste.
Hey, ma'am.
Namaste. Nice to meet
Now,
you.
our colleague Parveen madam will introduce you, and then you can start with your lecture, ma'am. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Namaskar, ma'am and sir.
Namaste. Namaste.
Good morning to one and all, and welcome to this August gathering. I am Parveen Sultana, Assistant Professor of Journalism and Mass Communication. Yeah, I'm here to introduce our delighted resource persons for this session on Inter-Civilization Connects of India. Dear participants, I'm thrilled to introduce a dynamic duo, Dr.D.K.Hari and Dr.D.K.HemaHari Garu, for our today's research session. They are the esteemed resource persons for explanation into our today's topic, who will be talking about the rich tapestry of Indian knowledge system. They are also the visiting faculty for Indian civilization studies at universities in India and overseas, and also conduct online courses. They have been felicitated as gurus in the field of Indian knowledge system and are a knowledge partner to the Indian knowledge systems division of Ministry of Education. They are sought after for curating expositions and for the multimedia talks in the field of Indian civilization, handling of water, agriculture, education, women empowerment, and Indian knowledge system and culture across the world. So, ma'am, on behalf of GDC Begumpet, I welcome Sir and yourself for an encouraging session and engaging session to our participants so that they make the most of this valuable learning opportunity. So, over to you, ma'am. Welcome once again.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you. That was very nice of you. And yes, like you said, all our resources, we will show you where they are so that everybody can make use of them, all those various articles and films that we have put up. So now coming to the topic of the day, what we wanted to actually talk about today is first and foremost, what is the name of the civilization and what does it denote? So how do we understand the civilization? There is a very beautiful word. The civilization is connected with the word dharma. So we always talk about the civilization being a dharmic civilization. So what does the word dharma mean? It means the character, innate character of anything. It's both life, objects with life, objects without life in that manner. So everything in this universe that is created has some innate nature to it and it behaves as per that nature. So like that, this particular civilization, which has been called Bharat, and this civilization has an innate nature to it. And what is that innate nature is what we are going to see, and how this has helped shape not only us, but the world also. So that is what we are going to see in this duration of an hour and a half. I will just share the screen and get started. Yeah, are you all able to see the screen? Is good? Okay, I think it should be because I can see it too. All right. So we're going to first explore the names of our civilization to understand it.
When we look at our constitution, we say Bharat, that is India, India, that is Bharat. So we have two names for this land as per the constitution of India. What do these two names mean? How do these two names come about for us? How do we keep these two names?
So if you look at it, the word Bharat has got two components to it, Bha and Rata. So Bha, if you look at it, it comes from the root meaning to glow, to illumine, to enlighten. So everything to do with light. And what is light? It is also a metaphor for knowledge. So when you want to talk about knowledge, how do we show? Even today, if you want to show, oh, I got a great idea, what do? You draw a face and then you put a bulb over that with light on it. So light means you are seeing something. Literally, look at it. You are seeing something only when there is light with your eyes. And you also see, meaning you perceive something when there is that knowledge. So light and knowledge, they always therefore go together. So Bha meaning light, and we know this from various names. See, you would have come across so many people with names like Bhaskar or Bhanu. So the word Bha here means, Bhaskar means sun. And that's because it's throwing light. Bhanu also means about light, glow. And the word now Ratha. Ratha, to best understand it, is one of the very nice examples we have in Indian legends. In the Indian Purana, you have one divinity who is Kamadeva, or you also call him Manmata, and he is the god of desire. He's a divinity for desires. And almost all our divinities, we show them with a consort. Who is their complementing force? Who is their complementing aspect? So if you have desire on one side, what has to be the natural complement for a desire? Things which are pleasurable, things in which you can take relish. So that which is attractive, that which is likable. So it is only then you will get desire. So desire, if you have Manmata, you have his consort as Rati, Rati Devi. So Rati here means that which is likable, which is relishable. So in which you have relish. So Bha Rata. So the Rata here is actually just like this Rati. It is to relish. So Bharata is a land where people relished knowledge. So they were immersed in knowledge, they liked knowledge, they sought knowledge, and therefore this entire civilization itself is a civilization that has been seeking knowledge. That has been the innate nature of the people of this land. We have sought, we have gone towards knowledge.
Now, in this whole wide world, we have about 170, 190 countries. No other country in the world, if you see, calls itself a land of knowledge, a land where people relish knowledge, where a land where people seek knowledge. So that's the beauty of how we are called ourselves Bharata. It's not just named after a particular king, but all these kings also are called Bharata because we all of us to this day, including this session, is what we are doing is seeking knowledge, relishing knowledge. So that's how we have so aptly called ourselves Bharata.
So which is why, if you see, we normally, most of us, we always, if we are asked, why is your land named Bharat? Most of us would say it is because of the Raja Bharat, the son of Dushyant and Shakuntala. So yes, that is also true. But he was also called Bharat. The names have meanings. So he was also called Bharat because this land, and he is one who has relished knowledge, who has sought knowledge. Like that, there have been many rishis who have been called Bharat. The name land also is named after them. So many illustrious people, and we have had the name Bharat due to them also. Now, show you something even more interesting.
While we called ourselves Bharat, a land of knowledge, what did our neighbors, our longest neighbors, is the Chinese civilization, which is also an equally ancient and illustrious civilization. How did they look at the world? What did they call us? That's what we'll see over the next minute or two. See, they divided the world into 5 kings, 5 kingdoms. First, they called themselves China, that's their own land, as humans who are obedient to government policy, which is until date too. The Turks are very ferocious, courageous. Persia, a land where they called it the center of the world, and fertile lands, wealth and glory. Rome, handsome, beautiful face, robust physique, so they call them Roma, handsome. But when it came to Bharat, Indians, what do they call them? A land of knowledge, where every branch of knowledge was discussed, cultivated, documented, and nurtured. So they called us the land that first gave us sciences to the world, that gave knowledge to the world. So while they looked at others for other qualities, when they came to India, when it came to Bharat, they called it a place of wisdom. So while we may call ourselves Bharat, it's very interesting to note that our other civilization to the north, with whom we have had continuous connection, both from the east and the northwest, they have also called us a land of knowledge, a land of wisdom. See how beautiful it is to be called a land of wisdom. Isn't it amazing? That's the beauty of it that you can see here. So this we are,
and it's a consistent picture, not just we, but now we are seeing Chinese. Now let us look at a few others. So if you look at it, there are Arabs as way back as 700 CE. So Persians, and this is from Baghdad.
Basra, I'm sure you've heard of Basra pearls. You know, Hyderabad is famous for pearls. Where you're all from, Basra is another center in Persia, which is very famous for pearls. There was a great scholar there, Persian scholar, who lived about 1,200, 1,300 years ago. What does he call the Indian civilization as?
So he says, as to the Indians, we find them at the first place in astronomy, mathematics. They notably possess the Indian numerals and medicine. As for the latter, they are the ones to own secrets. They know to practice many treatments. They talk about arts,
Chess.
chess.
See, chess was known then, it's 1,200 years back. Chess was known to Persia from India.
Then about many stringed instruments. See, important is stringed instrument. Please make a note. What is the difference? Stringed instrument is fundamentally needs metal. Unlike a drum or a flute, which is a wind instrument, these are basic fundamental instruments.
Metallurgy, high quality metallurgy, because the particular nadam should come from the instrument. So the metallurgy is very important when you have stringed instruments. And look at that. Apart from music, you also have kankala.
So then you have cymbals, then kankala. All of these are metal-based instruments. So that is the key point you have to note. And then they talk about the scripts, and then they talk about fables, Kalilava, Dimna, that is same as the Jataka tales.
So the Jataka tales, which we say the Buddhist Jataka tales, were popular 1,200 years back in Persia through these names.
And they also talk about how astronomical calculations have originated. So they are.
Adam came, first
and they were saying when Adam came down from paradise, he went to their country. So they are saying India was so good that he chose to go there first.
So that is why we have a paradise circle in Hyderabad. Paradise, that area is very famous because that's what he says. Al-Jahis mentions this, that when Adam came from paradise, where did he go first? To India.
So this is how people of the world have looked at India, Bharat, as a place of knowledge. Each of their different courts keep confirming this view. That so here again you have another philosopher. This is around 1,200 years ago. So he is also saying they are extremely advanced in Jyotish, Hisab, which is maths. They have got scripts, they've got cures. Their swords are extremely fine. So here again, look, reference to metals through sword. And then, of course, he's also talking about Shatranj, chess game, and so many other aspects. So you will find a consistent thread. Now, we go to this one particular scholar, Andalusi, Syed al-Andalusi. Now, he is from Spain, and you should remember that Spain, more around 1,200 years ago, was occupied. This part of Iberia had Arabs in Spain. So Spain was actually Arabs. They are even today they are referred to as the Moors. So Moorish architecture and all that. So Moors, they were from Spain. So here, so he is actually an Arabic scholar in Spain, and he writes, the first nation to have cultivated science is India, which is a powerful nation having a large population and a rich kingdom. So look, he's talking about three things here: knowledge, a lot of people, and also richness.
And he says India is known for the wisdom of its people for many centuries. That is many centuries prior to 1,000 years ago. So he says, not now. Then itself he says about that, and how the kings of India recognizes the ability of all Indians as the branches of knowledge, where he refers to the king of India as the king of wisdom.
So what the Chinese have said, he is reinforcing it many centuries later.
In Spain, he living in Spain, an Arabic scholar, Said al-Andalusi, that's what he says, and he calls the treatment of ulum, that is science, and the advancement of knowledge as being the thing. So we have seen one, India itself calling it a land of knowledge, China calling India a land of knowledge, Persia calling it a land of knowledge, an Arabic scholar in Spain calling it a land of knowledge, a scholar in Arabia itself calling. So look at the range of people from across different kingdoms looking at us as a land of knowledge. That is the beauty that we have wanted to bring out here and showcase to you as to how we have had civilization connects, not now, but 1,500, 2,000 years back.
Connects over millennia, as we call it. And we will see some more of these quotes.
So it's consistent that we have been looked at that way. That's the beauty of it, really.
So we saw just a little while ago about the Chinese view as kings of wisdom. And look at some more. So see, there are a few things now, when you say that this land is a land of wisdom, one, people intrinsically, we call it. Somebody else, China, has called it. And we have to see that there is this consistency. It's not just a one-off idea or a one-off naming, a one-off impression. It is an impression that is carried through across geographies, and it is carried through across times also. So even in 600 CE, so what are they saying? This Chinese scholar, Huan Sang, who had come to India, and he had come from China. And he was hosted by the Emperor Harshavardhan. He went to Nalanda, stayed in Nalanda. He learned Buddhism scriptures in Nalanda. And look at how he describes Nalanda. He says it's a Nalanda University was richly adorned with towers, richly adorned towers with observatories. And they were so tall, the observatories went so high that the tops were lost in the vapors of the morning. So in the morning, when there is mist, so the towers get lost. And that is how he has described the Nalanda University.
This is, of course, our own painting of how it would look. Then he speaks about different aspects of the campus.
And he speaks about how there were 9-story buildings and all. So how much we have devoted to knowledge. I mean, fundamentally, this is to reinforce the fact that he also saw that people here are giving a lot of importance to knowledge. And this knowledge, he says, it was supported. In addition, the villagers supplied food to the students whose material needs were entirely met by the university so that they could concentrate on the perfection of their studies. So it is not just scholars alone. The local people around Nalanda also realized the importance of Nalanda, realized the importance of knowledge, and they were supporting the university so that people there could study. So this is Nalanda, how it was a few years ago when we went. And of course, now there has been a lot of changes in Nalanda with the university coming up close by, but the site is being preserved. So this is in 600 CE. Now look at it in 1900s. That is
100 years ago.
Just previous century.
Here is a scholar. I mean, actually he's a scholar, but he's also an ambassador of China to USA.
Not to India. From China, he has gone to US.
And he is a scholar, a philosopher, a politician, a writer. What does he write? He says...
So he has... See, there is no compulsion on him to talk about India in glowing terms to US. At least if he's telling us, you can say that he's coming here to praise us. But he goes to US and there he says...
His name is Hu Chi.
He says India conquered and dominated China culturally for 20 centuries without ever having to send a single soldier across her border. 20 centuries, that is in his opinion at that time.
For 2000 years prior to his time, he says, so we didn't send a soldier to conquer by force. But what did we do? We shared knowledge, that rich knowledge of our civilization, the rich knowledge of science, because of which we had a good influence, a positive influence over China. That is why they called us 2000 years ago itself as a land of knowledge. Now coming down to the Greeks, it is the other great civilization in the Aegean Sea, the Mediterranean Sea. So what did the Greeks look at us? About almost
25 BCE.
That is about 2100 years ago.
So here you have Strabo, and he is a Greek geographer who lived in Rome, but because it's just across. And he says, this is about India, he says their institutions were less rude, their conduct to enemies more humane, their general learning much more considerate, and in the knowledge of being meaning about creation, existence, and nature of God, they were already in possession of a light. Here when he says light, this is an English translation of what he has written, and this has been translated as nice, but light, but it is knowledge. They were already in possession of a knowledge which was but faintly perceived even by the loftiest intellects in the best days of Athens. See,
Athens is capital of Greece.
See, for the West, the pinnacle of knowledge is Greece. All knowledge for them,
All of Europe.
whole of Europe, and of course, therefore, it follows to the US and all that
Later.
But the whole knowledge for them, everything came to them from the Greeks. And Greek, Athens was the capital. And what they are saying is about India, what all we knew and our conduct and the knowledge, all that we had was just faintly perceived. Not only, it was very, very rarely perceived.
Little only.
Little only, even by the loftiest intellects. So even Athens' greatest scholars did not have even little bit of the knowledge that the Indians had. So this is what he is saying. So what a strong star comparison
and
is bringing.
Let's have a British affirmation of this.
So, and then after many years, there is a British who is affirming how the Greeks considered India to be a great place.
He wrote the history of India. His name is Elphinston. Mount Stuart. I'm sure you have the Elphinston Road in Hyderabad. You have Elphinston College in some cities of India still. Then you have Elphinston Theatre in many places. This is the Elphinston.
Mount Stuart Elphinston, around 700, late 1700s. So he lived and he came to India. So he is saying, I have read all the Greek works and all that the Greeks are saying are absolutely true. I didn't think it would be true. So he's saying two things now here. One, the Greeks have written such nice things about India.
He's validating it after 2000 years.
Seeing it for myself that what they have written is true. And what did the Greeks write? All the descriptions of the parts of India visited by the Greeks give the idea of a country teeming with population and enjoying the highest degree of prosperity with 1,500 cities between Hydaspes and Ephesus.
That is the Indus River that we're talking about, the Punjab region, where he speaks very clearly about the 1,500 cities there then.
So he's saying the area or region of Punjab where all the rivers, the Indus, Satluj, Bias, Ravi, and all those flow, all those regions were so prosperous. They were it was just teeming with 1,500 cities.
And if you must have so much prosperity, then what do you have? Sciences, knowledge. Because prosperity is not possible without sciences, without knowledge, without wisdom, and applying that wisdom. That is important. Now let's look at one more Greek scholar.
And these records, actually, all these Greek records of visit to India, typically they go to the time of Alexander's visit to India. So this is around 326 BC when he came from Macedonia and came up to India. So in particular, Aristobulus, the Greek writer who had visited India, the region of the Indus Basin. Now what he writes? So he speaks again of thousands of flourishing cities and the region of the Sapta Sindhu. Hydaspes is Jhelum, Ephesus is Bias. So this is how we know these rivers today. So in 300 BC also, he talks about lot of population, lot of prosperity. So what was the kind of knowledge? So what is the kind of knowledge that we have been having in this civilization? It is knowledge which, especially if you say everywhere you're finding reference to sciences, sciences was well developed. What were these sciences? Things like astronomy, which we call Jyotisha in the Indian knowledge system. Then mathematics, which we call Ganita, construction, Vastu Shastra, architecture, Vastu Kala, shipbuilding, Nav Shastra, Shilpa Shastra, which is sculpture, then Yana Shastra, transportation, Rasayanam, chemistry, Loha Shastra, metallurgy. So you remember we saw swords, we saw musical instruments, all of that. In fact, if you look at some of the Greek records, they talk about in 500 BCE. Okay, so more than 2,500 years ago, they had their wars. And there is a historian who has made a note. His name is Herodotus. And he has made a note that in those wars, Greek and Persia used to have a lot of wars amongst themselves. So he says that in those wars, the arrowheads that were used for the arrows, the metal arrows, tips, all those arrowheads, they actually came from India, he says. He records it. So in those days also, they've been importing metal from India. And then we have Krishi Vigyana, Ayurveda, Yoga, Bhasha. So all these were the different sciences that developed. We think language is art alone. Language also has a science. Linguist has a grammar. So that was about the Greek. We have seen the Chinese, and we have seen Andalusi and the Arabic view. And
We've also seen Al-Jahis from Basra. So all this is we have seen. So there's one more person, Abu Umar, then Yaqubi, who writes a little later.
He writes from Egypt. See, there are Arabs who are spread all over, from Spain, in Persia, in Egypt. So all of them are talking about this.
So Yaqubi says the same thing. Look at it. And a person who comes to India to rule is a person named Lord Curzon, is Englishman. He is the Governor General of India, and he speaks about this. How India has left a deep mark on history, lot more than any other terrestrial unity in the universe, not the world, this is universe, where powerful empires existed and flourished India, while Englishmen were still wandering in the woods in England. So that's a very strong statement, because he is the ruler of the land there. He's a Governor General of India, but still he says the impressions of knowledge and flourish that India has left is much stronger and much deeper and much longer in civilization. Then we come to a German.
So Friedrich Schlegel, he is a German, and he says everything without exception is of Indian origin, whether directly or indirectly. All nations are originally nothing but Indian colonies. The Oriental antiquity could, if we consented to, deepen it.
So everywhere the influence of Indian thought, Indian has been so strong. He says everywhere, and all the concepts that were there in 1800s all over the world in different parts of Europe, he says it's got directly or indirectly an Indian influence in developing the thought process itself. That's again a very powerful statement. So
this is 200 years ago.
So you see this now. We have seen Germany, we've seen England, now look at the French.
So we're taking you literally on a world tour. So sitting in Hyderabad, and we here in Chennai, we are all going on a world tour and back in time. So we are in a time machine and going across all these different places and seeing what they had to say about India then. And this George Codis, his view, he says, the Hindu penetration and infiltration seem to have almost always been peaceful and unaccompanied by those destructions which disgrace the Mongol cavalcade or the Spanish conquest of America. So he's saying how the Mongolians, they have conquered, and the Spanish conquered America. So the Mongolians have conquered
much of Asia
and all that.
Central Asia.
So the way the people from India have gone, they bring disgrace to these conquests.
Because it's been without
destruction.
Without destruction is what we have moved around. That's he contrasts. This is a French observation.
Peaceful without destruction. Those whom India peacefully conquered by the prestige of her culture have preserved the essence of their individual characters and have developed them each according to its own genius. Now here, this is a beautiful thing, and I want to just pause here for a minute and bring in a slightly different thought. Or I mean, it's not a different thought, another point that I would like to focus here now. So look at these words: by the prestige of her culture and preserve the essence of their individual characters. So what he's saying is Indian culture is such that it has allowed all these different people to keep their own individual character, and instead has helped those people develop them each according to their own genius. So wherever they've gone, they've allowed the local people to take some of this and develop according to their own skills and interests and their own local culture. So the key word here is culture. Okay. So the word culture in Indian languages, we use the word kalachar, right? So look at the sound of the word kalachar and culture. They sound similar, and semantically, that is in meaning also, they mean the same thing. They're talking about culture. Now, we all know that how India is such a land with so much of diversity. There's a lot of different people having different food habits, dress habits, languages, and customs, traditions. All of these vary. And sometimes even celebrations. The cause of the celebration may be the same, but sometimes they are celebrated at different times of the year because of the seasons in those local parts. So, but yet we always say that we are a land with a single culture, which we call as the Bharatiya culture. So, how do you tally these two aspects that you see? So, here lies the beauty, and that is what these three lines are really bringing out. So, what we have done is, we now look at the words we have used. We have a term called achar in Indian languages. Achar means habits, good practices, good way of doing things, an artful way of doing things. So these achar, when they are done in consonance with local topography. So if you're in Hyderabad, you do it in a particular way. If you are in the Tamil region, which is more coastal, then you do it differently. Kerala, hill slopes and coasts, you do it differently. Forests, you do differently. North and Rajasthan, deserts, you do differently. So these different ways of doing things, while the intention will be the same, the mindset is the same, the way of doing it will be different, and that is called desachar. So achar in a particular des, in a desam, in a locality is called desachar. Okay. Now, India, what has happened, what is even now, is that everywhere you respect each other's desachar. So you don't say, oh, no, 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 Rajasthan way of thing is bad, I won't respect it. You, in fact, you like to go and you emulate that as well, even when you go there. So, where is it? So these desachars we have respected. And the vichar, the thought that you have to respect the different desachar is what is our kalachar. So when you say kalachar, it is the idea of respecting the various desachar. And that we have exhibited here in these three sentences. We have allowed them to develop their own individual cultures, but we have influenced. And that is the major point George Codès is saying as a French archaeologist. Then you have the English historian Arnold Toynbee, and on India, he's saying India is a central link in a chain of regional civilizations that extend from Japan in the far east, in the northeast, to Ireland in the far northwest. And between these two extremities, the chain sags down towards southwards in a festoon that tips towards the equator in Indonesia. And here, India is a central link, because a lot of this culture, you find it reflected in the Indonesian language.
He calls it like a toran, how it's spread all over from India through Indonesia all the way to Japan in the east. So that's it. Then now let's look at Australia, down south, southeast, where he says, where it is, he's written a book called The Wonder That Was India. His name is A.L. Basham. He's a sociologist in Australia and also a historian. So you see what he speaks about, how the Indian civilization has influenced all parts of the world, and he's recorded it for the world as a whole.
So he says the depth of the Western world to India in the field of mathematics cannot be overestimated. Most of the great discoveries and inventions of which Europe is so proud of would have been impossible without a developed system of mathematics in India. And this in turn would have been impossible if Europe had been shackled by the unwieldy system of Roman numerals.
Just pause for a moment here. See what he said. He's called it the Roman numerals. All of you know it, no? 111, V, X, C, M, all that. Try multiplying with that. Try adding with that. Dividing with that. Square root with those numerals. Can you do any mathematics? Any simple mathematical calculation? I'm sure there will be quite a few maths professors here in this audience today, or even others. Try doing a shopping with those numerals. Calculations. Is it possible? Multiplying. If you want to buy your home groceries also, is it possible? Just think of it. And then how can you think of scientific calculations with those? almost impossible. That's what it says. Europe had been shackled with the unwieldy system of Roman numerals, and that was unshackled by what? By the Indian system of mathematics, which it gave to the world, without which no science is possible. All your algorithms and computers and science is all possible only because of Indian mathematics system that was shared with the world. So when we say Bharat, land of knowledge, mathematics is at the like the peacock's crest in all this knowledge. That's the beauty of it. Now we have seen this also from Australia. Let's look at a Japanese view.
So here you have
The famous Japanese scholar Hajime
Nakamura, and he says without Indian influence, Japanese culture would not be what it is today. So openly acknowledging that Japanese culture today is because of the Indian influence.
Which is what the Chinese also say, which is what the Greeks say. This is this book. So look at this, how much we have influenced Japan, China, Indonesia, Australia, Persia, Arabia, Egypt, Greece.
Now, this is something which is a big surprise. Central America, that is the region of Mexico and all that, and also parts of South American ancient civilization, like the Aztec, the Inca, and so on.
The Mayans.
So the Mayans from Central America. So there was this ambassador, US ambassador, who went to Mexico. So this is like the Chinese ambassador who went to US. Now here is a US ambassador who is going to Mexico. His name was Miles Poindexter. And he had done a lot of research on ancient American civilizations. That is the Mayans, Inca, Aztec people, and so on. And he writes a book called Arya Incas, and which is the year 1930.
That is almost about 100 years ago. He writes a book in Mexico.
And he writes, America in race and culture was but an extension of Asia. So when he says America, he means both North, South, and Central.
Americas put together.
The entire North and South put together. He says that was an extension of Asia. And it is said that in pre-glacial times, it was geographically so also. Columbus was not mistaken when he called the people of the New World Indians. So
when Christopher Columbus went west to find this new world, what they later called America, after the times of Christopher Columbus. But what did Christopher Columbus himself call those people? He called them Indians.
And they were of that and kindred mixed races, and an unbroken line of blood and culture bound together the two shores of the Pacific Ocean. So which is the two shore of the Pacific Ocean? The western shore of America and the eastern shore of Asia, which is Japan and
China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, all that. That covers all the way up to Australia. So there was a connect between these two. We are talking about millennia ago, and what happened? That connect had led to civilizing and sharing knowledge with the west coast of Americas then. That is 1,000 years before Christopher Columbus.
So from India to Southeast Asia and Southeast Asia to America. So we didn't look at America on our west. For us, America was on our east.
So look at this map here, where you can very clearly see we are showing America in the east, India in the center here, and there's a connection between these two. Look at the connection, beautifully bring out. This is the person, Miles Poindexter, who was the USA's ambassador to Mexico. That's what he writes. Then we come to the Germans, or the great German scholars. Today, one of the premier universities in Germany is called the Humboldt University. It's a very old university, one of the best universities in Germany. So it started after this person, Baron Alexander von Humboldt.
Yeah, and he was an European anthropologist, so a person who was studying human population itself, and he postulated the Asiatic origin of early American civilizations. So he says Mexicans worshipped a figure made of man with the head of an elephant. It presents some remarkable and apparently not accidental resemblance with the Hindu Ganesh.
Yes, he said not accidental. So means it was real.
So the Hindus also worshipped a similar figure, Ganesha. And all the depictions, if you look at it, the American, Mexican elephants, they will have ears. See, Asian elephants and African elephants, you can distinguish them very beautifully. The ears is the main giveaway for between these two elephants. And the other fundamental difference is the Asian elephants are more easily domesticatable.
In comparison.
In comparison with the Asian, they are more with the African. The African elephants are more wild. And so if you look at the Mexican imagery of elephants which are drawn there, they will all be the Asian elephant kind, not the African elephant. And just like in India, how you use elephants for processions, the Mexicans have also depicted the elephants being used in processions, all decorated, which I'm sure an African elephant will not allow itself, it won't subject itself to all this decoration. So this and so many more people, we have written about this in detail. So the elephant symbol of Mayan has religious significance, just like the Indian elephant. They've done a lot of excavations, and everywhere they all come up to the same conclusion that India and Americas also have had connect. So look at this. We have gone China, we have gone to Europe. I mean, in terms of the cultural connect, many places we may have gone there physically, or at least our knowledge, our culture, they've all reached those places and influenced them, more importantly. It's not just reached, but also influenced all of them. And there are so many of them. We've written about this in great detail in our book, 2012. Now look at it, the Mayans who traveled. Many of us, we know, right? We know of a Mayan here. Who is that Mayan? And especially look at it, he's talking about great builders by profession. The Mayans who traveled from India were great builders. When they traveled over the seas, they took their skills of building large monuments along with the basic measurement systems, because the base measure and the square grid methodology of Vastu is common between the structures of India and that of the Mayan civilization of Central America. So who are these Mayans who were great builders? Many of us know of them. We know him as Mayasura.
Mayasura, the person who had that spirited knowledge of all mathematics, astronomy, shipbuilding, architecture, and all that. So
maths,
that's everything. Because for all that, maths is very important, absolutely, which is what we excelled in. So like that, there are quite a few other people.
So many such quotes about people who have said about India's knowledge. So of all of these, you see that a similar common thread of India and knowledge. We'll just play a couple of films that will break out this point, and then take you to the point, like if we were, if Bharat is the name we gave ourselves because we were people who sought knowledge, when and how did we get the name India? So that is what we are going to see in two films right now.
As per the Indian Constitution, this land is called India, that is, Bharat.
Why does this country have two names? Why is India called Bharat?
The word Bharat etymologically stands for Bha, that is light, the spreading of light, the knowledge which comes with the spreading of light, and Rat, one who is a connoisseur of knowledge.
How and when did Bharat get the name India?
In the Persian language, the syllable sa was pronounced as her. So the Persians and Arabs who came east towards the river Sindhu called the land around and beyond the river Sindhu as Hind. From this came Hindu, Hindustan. As the word Hind travelled west towards Greece from Persia, In the Greek language, H was interchangeable with I, thus Hind became Ind, Inde. Greek scholars of 200 BCE, Huitinga and Ptolemy, both show India as Indi in their maps.
Thereafter, the term Indi, Inde, India came to be.
So you can see how the name India actually comes from the river Sindhu. So look at the beauty here. One, Bharat has come because of our intrinsic nature. The name India is coming because of our geography and topology. So we all know we have the river Sindhu there, right? And we all refer to it only as Sindhu because it is there in our anthem also, national anthem, we refer to it as Sindhu. Now this Sindhu, in languages, there is this tendency for syllables to get interchanged. So for instance, between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, you will find there is a interchange of pa and ha. If Tamil Nadu, they say pal for milk, Karnataka, they say hal for milk. And for instance, sadi, sari. So ra and da. You also have ra and la. That is also there at times. Ra, da, bedam. So these syllables, some of them, they get changed. Bangal, ba and ba. So we normally would say Bengal, but it is also called as Bengal. I mean, in Bengal, they call it Bengal, and the word ba stays. So if you look at it, if we say vada, you'll say, find a lot of Bengalis, they'll be calling it with ba, vada. So, I mean, the ba sound will be there where there is a ba sound. So like that, syllables get interchanged. And so for Persians, the ha, sa got interchanged with her. So instead of calling it as river Sindhu, they used to keep calling it Hind, Hindu. And from there on, you get the name Hind. And for them, it became Hindustan. So all the region around and beyond the river Hind is Hindustan. Nothing to do with the language Hindu as such. That name is it came because of this aspect of calling this Hind and Hindustan. But this Hind, now between Persians and Greek, you will find that they have had a lot of interchanges and connects, and also a lot of wars fundamentally. So for Persians, from there, when it went as Hind, so when they would contact Greek and then they would talk about Hind, the Greek, they dropped the ha sound and just made it Ind, E sound. The ha was dropped. So it became Ind, and then Greek to Europe as it went. So each different lands, they called it Ind, Inde, Indi. And finally in Britain, they called it India. And that is how that word India came back to us. So this is actually the story how we came to be called India. And you will find these Greek scholars in old maps, they would have referred to as Inde. And which is why the color blue, this is the color that is very much associated with India. Even today, if you look at it, the Indian teams, when they go and play, they sport the color blue as the color of India. And this is not accidental. That's because the color blue comes from the dye, which is indigo. And look at the name it's got. Because it's coming from here, it has got the name indigo, that which is coming from India. So this is about the aspect of how we get the name India, and which is fundamentally, it was triggered off by the Persians, with their calling us as Hind. And look at the respect that Persia had for India. So there was this king, Khosrow I, and this is again around 500 CE. And he is also referred to as Anushirvan the Just. He was a very, very noble and just king, and well loved in Persia. And he is also given a lot of regard to Indian knowledge, Indian culture, Indian system of medicine, which has been adopted, which was taken into Persia. And So he amalgamated it with the Persian knowledge systems. Look at this. This is the statue for this Khosrow I in Iran. And look at all the attire. So similar to Indian attire. Not just of the king, but all his courtiers also.
The way we wear our dhoti, look at all that. So similar.
So look at this. He says, we examine the customs of our forebears. That means our ancestors. But concerned with the discovery of the truth, we also studied the customs and conducts of the Romans and Indians and accepted those among them which seemed reasonable and praiseworthy, not merely likable. So they were not just that we liked them, but they were also very worthy. They were praiseworthy. They were good. We have not rejected anyone because they belonged to a different religion or people. And having examined the good customs and laws of our ancestors, as well as those of the foreigners, which means India, we have not declined to adopt anything which was good, nor to avoid anything which was bad. Affection for our forebears did not lead us to accept customs which were not good. So this is how he is talking about taking knowledge from India. You will find that further, even Croatia, you can read this in our blog subsequently. So how Croatia, the name Croatia itself comes because of a Sir-Her interchange. Because Croatia, again, you will find that they have moved from Persia, that is Iran, and then they moved more westwards. And they, in their own story, if you tally their story, their history, you will find that it tallies very well with the Sir-Her interchange story. And you will find that this comes from the river Saraswat. So from Vedic Saraswati river, it becomes Haravati, Haravati in ancient Iran and Afghanistan. From there, it becomes Hurve and Huravat in Armenia and Kurdistan. Then it becomes Horotas when it goes further to the Black Sea. Then it becomes Harvati or Horvati to Hravati. So Croatia also today, actually, it is others who call. So just like people call us India, but we call ourselves in our local languages as Bharat. In Telugu, you would typically write Bharatam, or Tamil, we would write Bharatam and all that. Croatians, they don't call themselves Croatia. They will call themselves as Hravat. Hravat is their way. And just like we have in our website, .in. So any name .in, for them it is .hr, not .cr. So that is how they call and their local name. So this shows very well that this is also something that India has influenced. They've carried that memory with them of the river Saraswati. So this is there.
There's a full article on this in our BharathGyan blog on the subject, which you can all please read at your convenience. About chess itself, this article.
And so therefore, fundamentally, if you come to it, who took all this knowledge? How did much of this spread? This is something that is a beautiful story, and we will lead you to that. Okay. So, so we saw about metals, right? We saw everywhere the Arabs were telling about swords, string instruments, and all the metals. Now, in India, we are very familiar, right? We have seen movies where they show Chhatrapati Shivaji, the Marathas going for war, then they carry their sword and they will say either Jai Bhavani or Har Har Mahadev, right? These are their war cries. Har Har Mahadev, and they will show the film, the horses galloping. Now, when the Arabs used to go for wars, Persians, when the Persians would go for wars, what were the sounds they would make? What were the war cries they would have?
When they slash somebody with a sword, what they say is Jawabe Hind, meaning I answer you with an Indian sword. Because the sword is made from Indian steel. That's so that the importance of the Indian steel, and that steel was called Muhand. Because the steel was called Muhand. Because it came from Hind. Muhand, it was called, was very popular. And many Arab scholars like Idrisi and others have documented about this steel about 1,000 years back. So he said we excelled in manufacture of iron, and there are workshops all over the land, and it was impossible to find anything to surpass the edge, the quality of the Indian steel. That was what it was. Now, incidentally, we look at, and the Greeks called it ondanik, because the technique of making this from India. So it's ondanik and hundwani, they called it, and from that it comes from Ind. That's what they call it, ondanik, and the Spanish call it alinde. Look at, that's how it came to be. So the Indian steel was so popular. Now, if you look at the, where's the best example of the steel kept now? It is kept in the museum in Hyderabad, which is the most famous museum in Hyderabad, all of you know. So it is kept there very well.
So you have very good examples of this Indian steel, which was called Woods steel. And that was popular the world over. And Arabs are writing about it. They used it a lot. They traded, they took it and traded with the rest of the world. And these samples are today available in Salarjung Museum. And it will be nice if some of you can go and
see the steel, because the steel there is now called Damascus steel, but actually it's Indian steel, because it was traded to the port of Damascus, which is the East Mediterranean, but it's actually Indian steel that went there. Similarly, when you look at numbers that India gave to the world, which you already seen about how quite a few Greek, Roman, and Australian scholars have mentioned about India gave Indian numerals to the world. What do the Arabs call it? They call it Hind-Sa. That's what they call the numbers. All numbers are called, that's why we call it Hisab. But Hisab is a calculation. But the numbers themselves were called Hinsa. Maths was called Hinsa because it came from Hind. That which came from Hind is Hind-Sa. That's what we called it beautifully. So all Arabs call all the, what you today in English language call as the Arab numerals, originally came from India, Bharat, they call it Arabs.
So there is this author who has written these books, which were then translated into English. So this particular author himself, he states, the Arabs first learned about science from the Indians, along with their figure and methods of calculation in the year 156 of the Hijra. So in the year 156 Hijra calendar is when he says we first learned all this. And this is the year 776 CE as per the Gregorian calendar. So this is, lot of admissions about having learnt maths. So here also he says, this book itself is called Fil Hansa wal Argam al Hindi. So Argam means figures. Al Hindi means from Hind. Handasa means geometry.
Because it comes from India, Hind. So obviously, so you see a strong connect repeatedly of it speaking about a strong connect with India.
And we've already seen Syed Andalusi then, but now here is making a very specific statement about the Surya Siddhanta. And Surya Siddhanta was incidentally authored by that Mayasura, whom we saw. And about many other Indian mathematicians and astronomers. And under the name Sindh Hind.
See, Sindh and Hind. It became popular all over Europe. From then it went everywhere. So look at the strong connect we have.
And from Spain, it traveled further into Europe, where it was translated into Latin in 1000 CE, 1100. And from there, it created. So we all talk about in your history, you would have learnt about Renaissance in Europe. So much of these Renaissance thought was fueled and given all the fodder to think about and work with from Indian thought, which went to them through the Arabs.
See, Dr. Hema said about the word fodder, because when a new thought comes over a century, it must have sufficient knowledge content for the thought to build up. When Renaissance happened in Europe, which led to much of science in Europe, what was the fodder for that thought process? All that came from Hind, that is India, Bharat. So that's what comes.
So now, what happened is, for the Europeans, since it was all coming through the Arab world, they ended up calling it Arabic numerals and so on.
So Arabia got a lot of respect in Europe because they were transmitting this knowledge. So,
but the Arabs themselves, they even now, if you find it, they will call it Hinsa only for maths and everything because they came from Hind. Now, one very, very interesting thing happened. We had met some people of noble royal birth from Arabia. And there was this lady, a nice princess. And we were talking and she was introduced as Al-Hind, her name itself. So in Arabia, if you see, there is this word called Hind. Hind means
precious.
And this is a word that is given to a lot of girls. Girls typically get the name Hind.
And in Arabia, because they are precious people.
So
see, many girls in Persia and Arabia are called, they're called Hind. So that is the, so what happened? Why do they do that? Because steel comes from Hind, mathematics come from Hind, many other fields of knowledge come from Hind for Arabia. So what do? So they for them, the land of Hind itself was precious in those days and even today.
So because it is giving so many precious things, the land, because for Arabia, trade was their lifeline. And for that lifeline, it was India, Hind, which was supplying everything.
The produce. So we speak about Make in India today as a Government of India program. Actually, we had a Made in India 1,000 years ago. And who were the traders? The Arabs were trading it to Europe through Turkey, Istanbul, Constantinople. So that was the route that which went. So what did they do? The Arabs, when they call their young daughters, they call them precious people because the daughters are precious. So what do they call them?
Alternate word for precious became Hind, which means that from Hind.
So the daughters in Arabia came to be called as Al-Hind because you have a prefix of Al. So the precious one, like that. Here is just a couple of examples of these. See, we're showing that they are precious. So this term is there of different people. Al-Hind. So just showing you some. So this land has been precious right through continuously across the world. We have shown you about 15, 20 examples for us to bring forth the point when we say India, that is Bharat, land of knowledge, how the world cross. For more than a millennia and more, different countries have looked at India as a land of.
So,
yeah.
So look at this. This is a land. Our land has been known by many images. So Greeks called it the land of the Ganga because in their map, if you'll see, they will say Ganjam. So they'll write India. They'll also write Ganjam for regions of India. So Ganga, they were very, very familiar with Ganga. And one of the wishes of Alexander was to come and see the Ganga. But unfortunately, he didn't cross and he couldn't come and see the Ganga. Then the Persians, they called it the land of Sindhu. We have seen how they gave us the name itself.
Hind.
The Chinese had called it a land of wisdom. And the Arabs had called it a land of precious things. The term...
They call Al-Hind precious things.
The Turks went on to call spices after this land of spices. So spices was one of the commodities that was traded besides all the dye that we saw, blue dye, indigo or steel and so many other things. Spices was also there and spices came to be called Baharat in Turkey. So
B-A-H-A-R-A-T, Baharat means spices in the Turki language because it came from Bharat.
Then you have Francois Bernier, who had come to India, and he, if you look at his records, he writes about India as a land of abundance.
Actually, Francois Bernier actually comes to Hyderabad too. He stays for some time in Hyderabad. He passes through then the Maratha kingdom and goes on. He calls it a land of abundance.
Then we had Marco Polo, who came from Italy. And in his records, if you see, he'll describe India as land of millions. Milli, he will write.
He comes to the land of Malabar.
And so millions of gold coins, millions of fertile lands, millions of people. So it is Marco Milli. He came to be called Marco Milli itself. Then an American historian, Will Durant.
He was a great, he and his wife, both of them are great historians. Durant, they wrote as a couple, they wrote
Will and Mary Durant.
They wrote wonderful books.
And he had called it a land of tolerance, gentleness, and understanding. That's how they describe this land of India.
People speak about tolerance today from both philosophical angle and different angle of dialogues. But here is a person who wrote in 1930, that's about 95 years ago. He calls us, by practice, this is a land of tolerance, gentleness. Look at the beautiful words he uses well, 100 years ago.
And what did we ourselves call ourselves? We said we are Bharat. Now, Bharat, if you look at it, it comes. So now we want to take you through this particular aspect of Bharat, which is, so Bharat also stands for Bharti or metallurgy. So all those swords and other metallic instruments and everything, that was because of the aspect of metallurgy which flourished here. And metallurgy also, Bharti or Bhar, it denotes the glow of flame, which is an important aspect for metallurgy. And if you literally take the meaning of Bha and Rath means to relish, enjoy. Bha is light. So metaphorically, it's knowledge, but actually it is also light. So this is a land which enjoys sunlight. It's a land of sunshine. And the sunshine that falls here, the pattern of the seasons are so well laid out by nature itself that you get sunshine and after that you get the rains. So
the sequence
is such that after the land dries up, you get the rain. If you had the sun coming strongly after the rain, then they would all evaporate away. So you get a very good time to harvest, to sow seeds, crops. So between two summers, you get a lot of time window to get water and grow your crops and have harvest. So we have been a land which has enjoyed three
Bog, Team Fasal, Team Bog we have had.
3 harvests.
So very unique. That's why we also have a festival called Bogi. We have a festival called Bohali Bihu in Assam. We have that similar festival in Utkala, Vangala, Bengal, everywhere. So
Pedda Pandiga in
Andhra Pradesh. So Telangana, all that we have. So across the land we have. So we have a unique to have 3 harvests. That's the beauty. So that's why we enjoyed sunshine. So look at the name.
So if you look at the name, therefore, for our civilization. So we said the name, it is an innate character. It should reflect the innate character. And so etymologically, we have found that Bha and Rath, it denotes people who like knowledge. And in Veda itself, this land has been defined as a Bharatavarsha. You also have Bharatakanda and everything. So Bharat is a name you find even in the Veda
literature
and other literature. Then history shows that we have had many kings after whom this land has also been called Bharat. You find that metallurgy is another reason why this land is worthy enough to be called Bharat. Then climate also, you find that it relishes sunlight, rain, everything in the right sequence, right order, right proportion. So that way also we enjoy sunlight, land enjoying sunlight, Bharat. People are seekers of knowledge, therefore Bharat. And the entire thing, communication, when you talk, speech is how you communicate. And what is knowledge? If you keep it inside, you have to communicate. And one of the forms of communication is speech. And speech, and word for speech is Bharati. So there also you find Bharat. So from many, many aspects, you find that the word Bharat. So if you say Bharat, it represents all of this. And from this itself, you get a very good idea about our civilization.
So it's a very layered name with multiple meanings. That's how we have relished this knowledge, this civilization, and wonderful. And look at the name India. Look at this. The name India, what you call, because it comes from Hind, Inde, Indi, India, see, and how you call it the East too.
So one question might be, so now we have these 2 names. How do you distinguish, and what do you do with these 2 names? So this is a very nice aspect in which we can treat these 2 names. One is when you talk about Bharat, it intrinsically tells you about our strengths, our nature, and what we were good at. And whereas when you talk about India, it immediately automatically takes you to the idea of all the civilizational connects we have had. So India is a name that reminds us of our connects, while Bharat is a name that reminds us of our intrinsic abilities. So that's how we can enjoy the two names, use the two names. It's right here. But anyway, I think the fundamental thing is to know that we have been world leaders and are here. So Bharat reminds us of our innate strengths. Is the original name of this land and civilization. It's a name we have given ourselves. India, people who are outside of Bharat, they have given us this name based on how they saw us. And therefore, we can use both these names interchangeably and to mean certain things to us. And this is actually, and all of this, and both of these will give us both confidence and dare. See, when you know that people have cherished you, relished you, sought you, that gives you confidence. And when you know your own skills and capabilities, that also gives you confidence and dare. So these two are meant to give us this kind of confidence and dare. And that is what we would like to leave you with today in this particular session. We'll be open to questions.
If any.
Thank you, ma'am.
We'll just put out our, we'll show you where you can find our
further content if you want.
Just 1 second. Before we stop the share, we'll just show you some of those places. So like this is confidence and the dare.
Ma'am, because of the technical issue, we have a disturbance. But anyhow, ma'am, I'll open this floor for any interaction. I'll just find it out and I'll get back to you. 1 second.
So this is the website. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
It's visible. Huh? Okay. So here is the website. And if you go to the website, you will find all our articles. You'll find the blog. And the films are there. Playlist is there. You can access it from there.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Definitely, it was a very insightful session and very beautifully. But at the outside, I would first like to congratulate the way you both have been leading the session, the way you have been coordinating and giving the information about the topic. That shows that, the concerted and efforts you have made in making us to understand how great our Indian civilization and knowledge system is all about. So, from the point of you have been starting from the point of the constitution and the component of how Bharat name has been come, which means for seeking knowledge, and how you have talked about and throw a light about all the various aspects of Indian knowledge system and how the other countries have understood as a kingdom of wisdom. Yeah. So this is really very much valuable and very impressive, ma'am, for the knowledge that you have been shared. And you have also talked about how India name we have got it with its geography and typology, and how others have adopted openly the knowledge irrespective of their backgrounds. So that that shows that how impressive our Indian knowledge system is all about. Propose
You
my
have
vote of
summarized
thanks,
it
ma'am.
so well.
Together, you have brought a unique blend of expertise, passion, and first-hand experience that has undoubtedly enhanced an understanding of our diverse facets of Indian knowledge system. Thank you for sharing your expertise and engaging session into the insightful information and a journey into the hearts of Indian knowledge wealth. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. You summarized it so beautifully. You got the whole gist of the talk. Thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you.